Good afternoon, candidates and audience. I'm Karin Hribar, your moderator for today. This is the forum for Glenbrook District 225 High School Board. There are 10 candidates running for 4 open seats on the board. 5 of these candidates have agreed to the league's ground rules and format and are present today. They are David Hochberg, and right here, Matt O'Hara, Bruce Doughty, Michelle Seguin, and Peter Glowacki. Each of these 5 candidates will be doing a 15-minute mini forum in an interview style. Each candidate will begin with a 2-minute opening statement and will be allowed up to 90 seconds to answer each of 7 questions previously submitted by voters. Each candidate will answer the same questions. I will repeat a question if asked. Please remember to watch the timer. There will be a 1-minute and 30-second warning times, and then a stop sign. I ask that you finish your sentence then. With that said, let us begin. Mr. O'Hara, you may begin your 2-minute opening statement.
Thank you, Karin. I'd like to say that for me, the 3 goals of education is like real estate. It's education, education, education. Those are the 3 things we should be focusing on at all times. I feel a board member's job is to listen both to the parents, the community, the teachers, and the experts, to learn, figure out what we need to do, and then to improve the situation. If you're not fixing and changing and improving, you're falling behind. I mean, that's just the way the world is. District 225 is a big ship. It's got 5,000 students plus staff members. It's 2 major high schools. It's not something you can change quickly. And it's not something you should change quickly. However, if you don't make changes and improve stuff, again, you fall behind. And so my goal, and the reason I'm running for board member, is because I feel I could listen and learn and work to improve the school. That's the whole reason I'm here. So that's the end of my statement. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll begin with questions. And the topic of the first question is safe school reopening. And the question is, what are your ideas on safely reopening schools so that parents, students, and staff are reassured? And does this include remote or hybrid remote learning?
That's a good question. I think, well, frankly, the election's in April, and so this term is really starting in August. And with the vaccines coming out, I don't think we should be opening anyway except fully in person by August if we got these vaccines in people's arms and you reach a herd immunity. So hopefully we go the next 80 years without another plague and we don't have to worry about COVID again. That's an ideal situation. You know, they said don't let crises go without using the opportunity to change stuff. And I think that's the one thing we should get out of COVID, is we should use this to change and improve our system. One thing that we did do well, or that we learned how to do, I think, over this time, is remote learning to a degree. Remote learning does not work well for all of the children. I don't think it works well long-term either. However, maybe we don't have snow days anymore. Maybe we can get a calendar that works regularly. For me, I think COVID is a one-time event. It's a black swan. And it should be gone, and we should put it in the rearview mirror and go forward.
Okay, thank you. The second question deals with the topic of priorities for pandemic relief funds. And the question is, the district is expected to receive around $830,000 in pandemic relief funds from the federal government. How do you anticipate these monies will be spent, and what do you think the priorities should be?
Well, I think it's a financial steward question is what the question is. And for me, without having looked at the extra cost that we probably incurred as a school district over the last year, I think most of it should go to making sure that we're even from where we were before. Fundamentally, the money is there supposedly to make us whole, back to where the school district would have been had it not had COVID, COVID expenses, the extra expenses of the testing they're doing every week. I mean, that's not cheap. So hopefully we we can pay all that down, and hopefully the 836 covers that. I honestly don't know right now. I haven't looked at the numbers. I'm not privy to the information, but that would be my goal, is to make sure that we're even, so we can, again, put it in the rearview mirror and go forward. The whole goal should be to get education going again and getting us back on track.
Thank you. The next question is regarding curriculum. And the question is, what is the appropriate role for this Board of Education in determining curriculum in the Glenbrook High Schools?
That's a great question. In my mind, the Board of Directors is like the captain of the ship. And curriculum could be, if you're going with the ship motif, it gets more granular at that point. Maybe, you know, it's how do the engines run? How do you do the navigation? And the captain of the ship should not be down in the engine room fixing the engine necessarily. However, the captain of the ship has to understand how the engine works and what it is. And so in my mind, most of our focus should be on reading, writing, and arithmetic. Those are the skill sets that our children are going to need. Probably some financial education as well. One of the things that we should be looking at is some sort of financial education for all our kids, so that when they come out, they can make proper choices for their own retirement. Because ultimately, you got to start saving for that when you're 20s, and people who are in their 20s don't understand it, and we're not teaching them how to understand it. And that's one of the things we should be working on. On a granular level, do I think the Board of Education should be saying, oh, we should teach XYZ in a history class? Not really. I think we should be above most of that interday fracas that occurs with that stuff. We should be out there trying to make sure that we're providing a solid groundwork for our kids. I mean, this is high school. This is the stuff they're going to use as the base of the pyramid for the rest of their lives, you know? And that's what we should be: reading, writing, arithmetic.
Thank you. The next topic is mental health. And the question is, many believe the pandemic has greatly impacted mental health, especially for high school students. Do you think the mental health resources provided by the district are adequate, or what additional assistance could be provided to students?
Yeah, that question strikes close to home. Watching my own kids, especially my youngest, who's in 8th grade right now, go through the pandemic and not understand. You can watch them be depressed. You can watch them have these reactions, and they don't understand what they're doing. But as a parent, as you're watching this, and you're watching the social isolation, and you're watching them where the only interaction they have with people is through a Zoom call like this, which, while it's wonderful, it's not the same as sitting in a room with another person. You know, we're a social creature. I honestly believe the most damage that the pandemic did to our children is a social emotional aspect. We were lucky that this virus didn't kill children. Like most historic viruses killed the old and the young. And this one really focused on the older people from a health perspective. But I think a mental health question, that's a great question. What can we do for the children more than we're doing currently? I think is something we should be looking at. I don't have an answer as to, oh, we should automatically pay for more school psychologists. I mean, one of the issues you have is the children who are experiencing these issues, they don't realize what's going on. So how do you identify those children and get them the help they need? Part of it is an identification question. And I don't have a great answer. Hopefully the current board and hopefully the experts under them have been working on this and can come back to us and say, here's what we've studied and here's what we see we should be doing, and give options to the board so that they can make choices. I mean, that's really what I mean by listen, learn, and improve. I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you. The next topic is teacher evaluations. And the question is, how teachers are evaluated and by whom is generally determined through the union bargaining process. Do you think teacher evaluations should include input from students and parents?
100%. If you consider that, and I think most teachers would agree, grades are okay. They're actually what did Winston Churchill say? You know, we have a form of government, and it's the worst possible one except all others. Grades are the worst possible way to track this, except all other methods that we haven't found a better method anyway. and the numbers don't really tell you much because, teachers can teach to the tasks. There's all sorts of problems with grades. However, once you combine grades with interviews and in-person assessments and other what they call small data, as opposed to the big data, which is grades, then you can start getting actual feedback on what's working, what isn't working. I think most teachers want to do a good job. No one goes into their job and says, "Oh, I'm going to fail today." They go in and they want to do it well. And if you could provide them the feedback to say, "Hey, this is what's going to work," or "This isn't going to work," and you can help them that way, then you're going to improve everything. And that's what we need. So yeah, you 100% need feedback from the students and the teachers. And now some of that feedback, I know people be uncomfortable. Oh, there'll be this unhappy student. Oh, yeah, of course there is. But on average, if you're doing it right, you're going to have more students succeeding and more students happy. And then you just got to make sure you're touching everybody and understanding that by touching, I mean, reaching out and getting their feedback, not physically touching. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. The next topic is resolving community opinion differences. And the question is, how would you as a board member work to be responsive to taxpayers and other stakeholders in the community with strong differences of opinion?
That's a great question. I think 2020 has taught us one thing, is that there are strong differences of opinion in America today. Just when I went and got the signatures and I walked my neighborhood and I thought I knew my neighbors pretty well, but there were some very strong opinions on both sides as to what we should or shouldn't be doing. And you find yourself standing in someone's doorway talking for 5-7 minutes. One of the things that I think needs to be done is we need to, it'll sound weak in a way, but we need to communicate better. Most people want to have an open dialogue and an understanding. And once you sit down and talk to people and they respond and talk back, they feel far more comfortable, even if they don't always agree with what you're going to do. And I think as long as you're open about what you're doing and you're open about your processes and you're open about the information, then that's how you diffuse some of this, because we will have different opinions. I mean, that's just the nature of having different people. Every ethnicity out there you think about has the joke, oh, how do you, I'm an Irish, O'Hara, Irish. How do you get 4 opinions? Well, you put 3 Irishmen in a room, right? But you could just change the ethnicity on that joke because it's true for everybody. If you put 3 people in a room, you're going to get 4 opinions. And we got, 70,000 people between Glenview and Northbrook in general in the district and Gulf. You're going to have a couple of different opinions on everything. So making sure people are invested in the process and, listen, learn, and improve. Thank you.
Thank you. The last question regards your priorities. What do you see as the top 3 priorities for the school district in the coming term, and what challenges to this do you see?
I think, sadly, putting COVID behind us is the biggest challenge. Building back, there was a lot. I'll be honest, spring was not good for my kids. The remote learning didn't work well, especially when we started, and it isn't anybody's fault necessarily, because we just weren't prepared. No one was prepared. You can't use that as an excuse, though, in the fall when you come back. We have plenty of time from March 16th, when everything shut down, which is just about a year ago today, to August when you're coming back to get stuff ready. And I think getting us back on track and refocusing on just education, making sure that we're educating the children the proper way, and giving them those basic building blocks. And then, one of the things we should start focusing on are structural issues in our school. There's no reason that the final exams or the midterm exams should be after Christmas break. It doesn't make sense. If you're going to design a system, you do the midterms and then you go on Christmas or a holiday break. So stuff like that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And that's all of our questions for today. Thank you, Matt O'Hara, for joining us today. And we welcome all audience members as well. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Karin. Take care.